This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
I want to welcome you to a very special episode of Real Talk. Today, in a way, we're stepping away from our usual format and into a proper election debate, and it's safe to say that the stakes couldn't be higher in our home city. The stakes could not be higher when it comes to Edmonton's future. 3 candidates have stepped into and remained in the limelight, stepping forward to lead Alberta's capital city through the challenges and the opportunities of the next 4 years. Councillor Tim Cartmell, Councillor Andrew Knack, and former Councillor Michael Walters. In this episode, we'll cover the big issues that Edmontonians care most about, from downtown revitalization and public safety to taxes, affordability, housing, climate, and the culture at City Hall itself. You're going to hear from each of the candidates directly, side by side, answering not just my questions, but yours too. Our goal today is simple: to cut through the talking points, to press for clarity, and to help you, the voter, decide who's got the vision and the leadership to take Edmonton forward. So here's how it'll work. Each candidate will get equal time. We'll keep things respectful but tough, and we'll close with a clear promise from each candidate about what they'll deliver if they're elected. So let's get to it. Mr. Cartmell, Mr. Knack, Mr. Walters, thank you for being here. In our feature presentation by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West, we're going to start with brief opening statements, 90 seconds each. The question is simple: why me? Why now? Mr. Cartmell, you've drawn at random the first response. The floor is yours.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's Tim Cartmell. I'm a lifelong Edmontonian, a professional engineer, and a 2-time city councillor. Edmonton is where my wife, Kathy, and I raised our family, built our business, and built our lives. For 30 years, I've been solving problems and building communities you can trust, delivering projects on time and on budget, and asking the tough questions when the simple answers were good enough. As a community leader and councillor for Ward Pahaswin, I've been able to deliver real results. The Terwillegar Drive expansion, the Ambleside Service Building, and the Terwillegar Rec Centre. I've brought real accountability to City Hall. I know how to make things happen, and I know how to deliver for the people I represent. That's the discipline and independence that I'll bring as mayor. Because I know we can build this city better, and I know a great city doesn't have to cost more. Now here's the difference. My opponents have supported those same council decisions that have left us with higher taxes, slower growth, and streets that don't feel as safe as they once did. Some want to pretend the last 8 years didn't happen, or that they weren't in the room. But they were. And Edmontonians deserve more than recycled ideas and revisionist history. As mayor, I'll launch a safe street strategy, combining visible policing with community partnerships. I'll get our fiscal house in order so jobs and investment come back to Edmonton. And I'll focus on smart growth, fixing roads and bridges, and supporting housing in places like Blatchford, Northlands, and downtown, and not in your backyard. Here's the choice. If you want the same old decisions, the same old results, you can vote for one of my opponents.
Okay, that's time. Thank you very much, Mr. Cartmell. Mr. Knack, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This election is a choice between 2 very different visions for the future of our city. The other is simple: slash the budget and don't talk about the consequences. My vision is about solving the real problems Edmontonians face every day when they get up for work. And my plan to do that is straightforward. I'm going to make things safer for mom and dad taking their kids to the library. I'm going to create opportunities for the worker who gets up early to start the daily grind, and the new business owner who flips on the open sign. I'm going to make sure our city is welcoming to newcomers. I'm going to help unhoused people get into proper housing with supports to keep them housed. I'm going to protect and improve the services families depend on. I'm going to steadily get our budget under control with no surprises. And I'm going to show up at council, not just on the days that suit me, and give Edmontonians a real say in how we do that. That's it. In a time that feels chaotic and uncertain, I'm offering stability and solutions for every Edmontonian who wants to see our city move forward, not backward. That is the future I want for our city. That is why I'm running for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knack. Mr. Walters, your time begins now.
Yeah, good morning, Ryan. Thanks to Tim and Andrew for being here. I'm Michael Walters, running to be the next mayor of Edmonton because I believe in our city and our people. I grew up poor in a trailer court in Drayton Valley and came to Edmonton to build a future. Came to Edmonton as a place of opportunity. My wife and I have raised our 2 sons here, and we built our lives here. From my years at Bissell Center and in the nonprofit sector, to 2 terms on city council, to running a small business right here downtown, I've spent my whole life working to make this city stronger. I've spent my whole life in community. But now, Edmonton is at a crossroads. We face challenges with safety, affordability, homelessness, and economic growth. We cannot be pleased with the last 4 years. But I believe our best days are ahead because we have the talent, we have the resilience, and the heart to rise to them. This election is about leadership. It's about restoring our focus and our pride. Together, we can put politics aside, find common ground to build a safe, affordable, and vibrant city that we all know we'll love. I know the next 4 years can make up for the last 4 if we all rise together. We need a balanced approach, a progressive approach, a city where people and business can thrive, where we're a city that's beautiful, connected, and enduring. I look forward to our discussion today, gentlemen. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Walters. You've heard the opening statements from these 3 candidates that are joining us in the Real Talk studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton. And that's what we'll talk about next in 9 minutes of open debate. My job will be to moderate and ensure that each candidate has equitable time on the microphone. Our first topic is one of the biggest ones. If you talk to the pollsters, downtown revitalization and public safety is top of mind. These issues for Edmontonians include concerns about crime, Edmonton's houselessness crisis, and stalled investment in the core. Councillor Knack, we'll start with you, and then we'll open it up.
Thanks. So we know that Edmontonians deserve to feel safe, and we are dealing with a pretty significant issue right now. We see that the statistics are saying one thing, people are saying something entirely different. They're not feeling the safety that EPS says we should be experiencing. And so my Safer City plan that I released recently talks about how we're going to do that. It balances both prevention and enforcement. It's making sure we continue to invest as we have with stability for Edmonton Police Service, but it's also ensuring that we actually focus on the other side of the equation, which is getting people into housing. And that's why I've released my housing and homelessness plan this week. And this talks about not waiting on the province anymore, taking leadership on this issue because it's getting worse. And we need to spend that time on prevention. We need to spend the money we're already spending, about $91 million a year, and focus it on even more preventative solutions so that Edmonton Police can focus on serious crime. And this is something that we know has proven success. We've seen it through developments like Ambrose Place when you get people into housing and care, what that looks like for the community, what that looks like for those individuals who need the support. And so we need to lean into that far greater.
Okay, Councillor Cartmell. Mr. Cartmell.
Yes, Mr. Jespersen.
I suppose there's no sitting councillors at the current
no,
moment.
this is
Mr.
not
Cartmell,
a council.
over to you.
Yeah, well, thank you. So we certainly do need to emphasize safety in our public realm. And for that reason, we cannot abandon the relationship that we have with the province like Andrew is suggesting. We spend $90 million a year effectively doing the services that the province is responsible for, and we need to remember that. We need to rebuild that relationship. I want to shift our policing emphasis to a community policing ethic. Visible presence of police officers in the public realm, on our streets, in our public spaces, but more than that, being part of the community, being at the CRL meetings, at the DBA meetings, at the BIA meetings, at the community league meetings, knowing who the shopkeepers are on the streets, being aware of what the street is. That would be the safety part of it. The renewal part of it, I think, carries a couple of different things. We don't have a neighborhood renewal plan for our downtown. So something as simple as renewing the sidewalks, renewing the curbs, putting dollars that are in control of the city towards refurbishing and revitalizing our downtown in an infrastructure way to support all of that housing that we're going to be bringing to the city. And certainly, circling back to safety, the way that people are going to feel most safe is when there's more people in the downtown realm. Housing starts that. Kickoff on housing in those empty spaces in our city, in the downtown, in those parking lots, taking advantage of the student demand that will be in our city, brings people to the core, and then that in turn turn creates the demand for hospitality and retail and business to return to the core.
Okay. Mr. Walters, how does your vision differ from what we've just heard?
Well, I wasn't sitting on council the last 4 years where we failed to make progress on this really important issue. We think there's no doubt that people feel far less safe in our city today and in our downtown today and on our transit system today than we did 4 years ago. So I think the lack of leadership, the lack of teamwork, the lack of a council effectively working together to address Edmonton's most important issue is why we need to turn the page and why I'm in this race. You know, we have, the results matter. 5,000 unhoused people on our streets is more than we've ever had. 8 times the overdose deaths that we've had since 2021. These are real people, real families, and we need to focus on this issue. And if any one order of government could solve this problem, like Andrew is suggesting, it would have long been solved. So this is why we have to be smart about working together, creative about maintaining and improving relationships with other orders of government. First thing we need to do, and safety, our downtown, our imagination about our downtown is very limited until we solve these issues. So we need day shelter space immediately. This is job one. This is the first priority for me, working with our agency partners and the province and our council to build day shelter spaces. We need to reestablish overdose response teams, housing outreach teams, encampment response teams. These were things that this council could have taken leadership on in the spirit of we can do it ourselves, but they didn't. And we need to do those kinds of things. And we certainly need more coordinated deployment of our EPS officers with TPOs, with our social agencies, so that our downtown and our transit system is completely safe. And when that happens, people's willingness to come downtown passionately to support growing arts, vibrant arts, local businesses, the life that we want down here will come. And I'm very hopeful that we can do both of these things.
Okay, gentlemen, we have 4 minutes remaining for open debate. If any of you would like to challenge something you've heard from one of your fellow candidates.
Well, I'll kick off with a couple of things. First of all, we certainly need shelters for that urgent, emergent, overnight care. But what we really need is that supportive housing, that bridge housing that falls in behind, that offers those longer-term, open-ended solutions for people that really need those supports. That is a provincial responsibility. And Andrew has already stated that he wants to give up on building that relationship with the province because those components of supportive housing are healthcare components, and they are provincial responsibility. We got to find a way to mix into that.
I think that it's all of our responsibility. We always talk about it like it's a provincial responsibility. We all have a role to play, from the community, the city council. We have land. We can make things happen with quicker expedited permits, making neighborhoods more open to these things. Our agency partners are super critical in this. I think that more than ever, we need an all hands on deck approach to this.
And we saw that with the CRL. There was a partnership offered. There was support, $180 million of provincial funding that would support the housing that we need in downtown. And Andrew voted against it. So there's a collaboration piece needed, but the current council, led by Andrew, has simply
you were both
not
leading
been.
the current council.
Well, I was voting against it.
So. No, you're not mayor. But you were both senior leaders on the current council, and the results are clear. We have more homeless people in our city than we've ever had before. And you could say that you've built more housing. Our council back in the day started the AHIP program, the Alberta Affordable Housing Investment Program, to compel that. There was a lot of leadership, but you haven't adapted. We have more homeless people than we've ever had. We have more overdose deaths than we've ever had. The results speak for themselves, which is why we need new leadership and a new approach to the community, working across with the business community, the faith community, the nonprofit community, to make sure the province is at the table. We can't give up when the going gets tough.
Mr. Knack.
I think, again, we come back to, I'm hearing 2 conversations always about we just need to keep advocating. We just need to keep advocating.
That's not what I'm saying.
That's going to be the solution.
We need to keep organizing.
Red Deer's been asking for permanent housing for those who have finished the recovery program. They can't get it. Spots like Cold Lake and Bonnyville have been asking for solutions. Everyone is asking the provincial government for solutions. At some point, when they're not delivering it for anyone in this province, this isn't just an Edmonton issue. We have to be willing to say, are we going to accept inaction from them, or are we going to just say, let's take the lead, we'll go partner with the federal government, we'll go partner with our nonprofits, and then maybe they'll come to the table with us. But we can't keep using this making the statement that advocacy will solve it, because it's clearly not solving it. It hasn't been solving it for years. They're not willing to build the housing necessary to get people off the streets.
Not sure how you get them to play their part by walking away from the table.
Well, because Andrew, why didn't you make motions? You talk a lot about all the motions you made. I want to talk about a few you didn't make. to fund the overdose response teams, to fund the encampment response teams.
Because we wanted to fund more housing.
You said, of course we need more housing, but we all know that we need the spectrum of services. What's the point of building more housing if someone's going to die of an overdose because you didn't put the resources in place to prevent that person from dying of an overdose? Council could have taken a way stronger position on a project in Boyle Street was leading in Ritchie on the Wolf Den to provide overdose prevention or overdose replacement opportunities. Everybody went silent on that when the going got tough. You can't, I've been fighting for housing my whole career, but you also need those front end services. And if you're talking about leadership, you didn't show the leadership in this term on those things that the city could have afforded.
Build more housing than ever before, which got more people.
And we have more homeless people than ever before.
Which is why we need to invest in this, right? And
and
the
my plan
suggestion that
does
we're going
that.
to keep cutting back and actually going back and freezing taxes and reducing that.
I'm not saying we're freezing taxes.
You're not going to be able to have the funding to do what you're talking about.
I'm not saying we're freezing taxes. I've never once said we're freezing taxes.
You suggested going down to inflation. We're not going to be able to.
I've said around it. We're going to get into that in the budget conversation, but certainly there is no doubt the city of Edmonton, if it was to take on healthcare, mental health, addictions, housing, and all those services, wraparound services, that is unrealistic and it's disingenuous and it's hurting people. That's the problem because we cannot afford to do it.
What's hurting people is leaving them on the street right now.
Okay,
which you didn't fund the encampment response teams. You could have funded those.
Okay, we've reached our 9-minute limit for this, the first roundtable portion of the Real Talk Edmonton Mayoral debate presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West in our downtown Mercer Warehouse studio. In just a couple of minutes, we'll get into taxes, spending, and priorities with the three candidates joining us in studio, Michael Walters, Andrew Knack, and Tim Cartmell. You can join the conversation by leaving a comment in our live chat powered by Park Power or send us an email right now to talk@ryanjespersen.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people. So you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
If your fall into winter absolutely must include getting organized, getting everything tip-top so you can finally relax in your biggest investment, otherwise known as your home, your palace, your space, you need to get in touch with California Closets. Nobody does custom closets and storage solutions better than California Closets, and they are 100% Canadian owned and operated. As a matter of fact, all of California Closets installations are manufactured right here in our home province of Alberta and guaranteed for life. California Closets can work with any budget, and the consultation's always free. You can book that consultation today by visiting californiaclosets.ca. Thanksgiving will be upon us before we know it, and Friesen Brothers has you covered with the Thanksgiving dinner box. You can enjoy a traditional meal with roasted turkey, hearty sides, and fresh-baked tray buns, plus optional add-ons to make it your own. Order online and pick up at your convenience. Spend more time with family and friends and let Friesen Brothers handle Thanksgiving dinner. You can learn more and order yours today by visiting cateringbyfriesen.com. Check out Solar by Kuby online at kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca. You know that this company, this remarkable success story, has completed more than 5,700 solar installations across Western Canada, earning the trust of homeowners and businesses who want a reliable partner in their renewable energy journey. What truly sets Kuby apart is its technical-first mindset. This company was built by certified electricians and engineers, not salespeople. This means that every system is designed and installed with precision, safety, and long-term performance in mind. The focus always on delivering quality solar solutions that are built to last. You can request a free solar quote today by visiting kuby.ca. And a message to you business owners and entrepreneurs out there. The team at North Road Investment Council knows that many of you are asking those big financial questions. You know, should you pay yourself in dividends or salary? Should you put savings into a TFSA or an RSP, or just leave investment inside your corporation for your eventual retirement? Or is there maybe another option that your current investment advisor hasn't even brought to your attention? At North Road Investment Council, these are the questions they help clients answer every single day. If you're a real talker whose business is earning more than $200,000 annually, if you're over the age of 40, one option that deserves a serious look is the Individual Pension Plan, the IPP. And North Road Investment Council would love to talk to you about it. You can reach out to them today on their website. That's northroadic.com. All right, our Real Talk Edmonton mayoral debate continues with Tim Cartmell, Andrew Knack, and Michael Walters with a discussion on taxes, spending, and priorities. We'll follow that same format. 9 minutes of open debate moderated by me. We're going to go straight to your wallets, Edmontonians. We're talking taxes, spending, and priorities at City Hall. With inflation, affordability challenges, and questions about where council is directing funds, we just heard some debate on that. This will be certainly a defining issue for the next mayor. Mr. Cartmell, you'll lead us off.
Thanks, Ryan. So yeah, let's talk about your wallet. This is how you do it in your house. You figure out how much money is in your wallet, figure out how much money is coming into your household, you figure out what your mortgage payments are, your grocery payments are, your utility bills are, and you make sure that you have enough money coming in. And if there's a little bit of money at the end, well, maybe you go on a trip or you save up for something you want to buy. It's not the way the city does it. The way the city does it is it goes and thinks about all the things that it wants, figures out how much they all cost, and then takes that money out of your pocket. We have to start budgeting and planning the way you do this around your kitchen table or around your boardroom table, full stop. I can tell you, as an engineer, on the projects that I have led for 35 years, the first budget is never the final budget. You are constantly refining that budget. You are constantly combing through the line items in that budget, looking for efficiencies, looking for savings. I've done this my whole life. So when I talk about a zero-based budgeting line-by-line review, I'm talking about something I've already done many, many times. We need to prioritize those lines of service, allocate the right dollars that we're already taking to those priorities, and if there's not enough money at the end of that to do anything else, then that's where we stop. We need to budget to our available funds, not budget to our dreams.
Mr. Knack.
Thanks. Excuse me. So for me, this is something I've been working on in my time on council. Over my 12 years on council, I've made numerous motions to find savings in different areas. That's involved cutting middle management. That's involved removing vacant staff positions that have been in place for a long time, and yet the city kept budgeting for them year after year. And that type of approach is going to be needed as we go into our next 4-year budget, is a responsible budgeting, but a realistic budget. And for me, this is why it's so important. This next council is going to be going through an exercise starting in the new year through a motion that I made of actually going through every single branch, making sure that we're getting good value from those services, making sure we know where we want to prioritize and where we don't want to prioritize. But we also need to make sure we're doing that with Edmontonians. So as mayor, what I want to do is what I've been doing as a city councilor, going out and doing budget town halls, actually talking about what things cost in the city, giving people those real numbers so that they can understand what it takes to pay for the services that they rely on, so that we understand that together when we go to make the recommendations of what additional funds we need to do and what we don't. So we can't have this back and forth of these pendulums where we went in the previous 4-year budget, we were 4 years in a row below inflation, and in this 4-year budget where we're seeing substantially more, we have to bring it back into a thoughtful way that still invests in Edmontonians, that still invests in the services, because we are hearing this idea of pausing capital projects and not doing anything new. We need to invest in a growing city. That's going to be important. So I'm going to bring a responsible budget, but one that still invests in Edmontonians.
Okay, Mr. Walters.
Yeah, so I was door knocking last night, as we do every night, and young father told me, he gets that 3-4% tax increases every year. He understands, we got to invest in the city. Services cost money. People should be paid well. But his punchline was 9%, 8% really hurts. It's hard to absorb. We actually did leave the last council with a priority-based budget commitment and an exercise that didn't really proceed. So we get these priority-based, zero-based budget kind of promises every so often by political leaders or candidates, and it's very difficult for whatever reason for them to follow through. So I think we have to look at what's true. Is in the last 4 years we've had a 28% cumulative tax increase, if you can count the one that Andrew is committed to, the nearly 7% one that's coming this fall. What we're actually doing is not investing or saving for our future. We are hurting our competitiveness. We all know, or we should know, that the way we pay for a growing city is through a strong economy and a strong non-residential tax base. There's an old line that if for every couple Leducs we add to Edmonton, we need a Nisku to pay for it. And if our taxes are so high, our businesses here today and future businesses are actually going to go to the real Nisku or the real Atchison and not invest here, which means that we have to, in order to pay for the basic services we have now, we have to go back to seniors, families, small businesses to pay for the things we need. So no one is talking, I've never talked about a tax freeze. I'm talking about responsible, inflationary, with some growth factors in our budget that doesn't drive business away from Edmonton. I think Andrew's approach, respectfully, is dangerous because in the long run, it hurts us. And in the short term, we're not being honest with people about the tough decisions we have to make to trim some of the non-essential or less essential frontline services and find productivity and efficiency where I think this last council refused to look.
Okay, we have 4 minutes left for open debate. Whoever wants to jump in.
Well, I'll just say
Handle it however you want.
I think we have to all admit here that if you've really been listening in this campaign, and if you've been, sure, we talked to the not-for-profit community and to the arts community and to regular people, but all those regular people work mostly in the private sector. And what we're hearing from the private sector is more and more of our long-established, large employers are looking over the border into other municipalities in the region, and it is putting our city at financial risk. So I think we have to admit that the successive tax increases of the last 4 years are driving business away, which really helps pay for all these important services that we need.
Which
we
is
have
why
to be honest about this.
Which is why I have put out an actual plan that would freeze non-residential taxes where they are for companies that are reinvesting in their properties, reinvesting in their employees, reinvesting in their companies. That is our actual plan.
But it's difficult to freeze the mill rate, Tim. You got it all has to come down for everybody. Balanced budgets.
So it gets back. It's my turn now.
Oh, sorry,
we
Tim.
get back
Forgive me.
We get back to zero-based budgeting, and we get back to prioritized-based budgeting. Both concepts that I introduced, that these fellows beat me to the mic on the motions. But what I'm talking about is a council-led process. I think it is not reasonable to ask administration to lead that process. You're asking a group of people to cut their own budget or to cut the budget that affects their colleagues and their friends. This needs to be a council-led process, and we have not done that. It's council's responsibility. And here's, Andrew talks about real numbers. Here's some real numbers. The total property tax revenue that the city receives in 2025 is $2.4 billion, up from $1.8 billion just 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. That's $600 million more every single year coming out of the economy to run the city of Edmonton. There's enough money in the system. But at the same time, even though Andrew claims to have made these motions that have reduced these budgets, where does $600 million come from? And when you think about things like core services, things like snow clearing, those budgets have increased either not at all or very modestly. We have to do this at the council table. We have to take control of this budget. We have to do a line-by-line review, and we can find the efficiencies to keep non-residential property taxes down for the companies, the organizations that will invest in our city.
Okay, Mr. Knack.
I think first, I didn't claim to make those motions. I've made the motions. The one that cut middle management, in fact, both of you supported, and I was pleased that you did support that, right? The one that I made in 2015.
There have been multiple councillors that made multiple motions about cutting management, not just you.
Well, I was the one where
Brian Anderson did the one on vacancies.
But I think the question is, when it comes down to who's going to be able to deliver on a responsible budget, each of us have served on council or are currently serving on council. So what motions have each of us brought forward over our time to reduce the budget, and how much has that delivered? I have a proven track record of what I've actually delivered on this. I have the actual motions that I've made. So it's nice to talk about savings. We used to have a council colleague last term who talked about finding savings all the time and then never made motions. So we need to actually show our work to say, what have we done to know that what we can actually do? And I'm the one that's actually done it, and I know I can do it.
Let me talk about the motion to beat all motions when we shifted all of our drainage infrastructure to EPCOR from the city, which resulted in us saving $2.8 billion in capital and a ton of interest costs on our utility to help families have lower utility bills and safer homes. So we can talk all day long about
and yet we
how much money
more
we've saved. But
let me
just say this. Let me just say this. When we think about our budget, we need to think about how is this driving economic growth? So in our next 4-year budget, where we need to do work with our chambers of commerce and our chambers of voluntary organizations and our arts communities to make sure that collectively we understand what the priorities of the city need to be in order to build an amazing place that our young people will want to stay and build their lives in, we need to focus on economic growth. This 7, 8, 9% tax increase does not do that. We need to focus on public services because that's what drives economic growth, and we need to make this a livable city.
Okay, we've hit our 9-minute limit on this. The good news is that each of these candidates will have the floor back in just a moment as we transition to this portion of the Real Talk Edmonton mayoral debate. These are your questions, Real Talkers, submitted via email, some of them coming to us right now in our live chat powered by Park Power. Each of the candidates will have 90 seconds to respond, and if challenged, we will offer an optional 30-second rebuttal. The first question will go to Michael Walters, then Mr. Knack, then to Tim Cartmell. It comes to us live from Tracy. Tracy says budgets can be bottom line, priority driven, and hopefully inclusive, but I prefer that a city starts with core needs, priorities that are the city's responsibility. Has the city of Edmonton gotten away from that? Your time starts now.
Yeah, I think that when people pay their taxes, I think they expect their first few dollars to go to pretty basic stuff. Snow clearing. This is if we don't do that well, we're stuck, literally. We're not going anywhere. Public safety is a critical piece of the city's responsibility. Public transit, in my perspective, is a high priority for a successful city of our size. So core services need a lot of help. So I think when we talk about budgeting, it's not always about lowering how much we're spending in every area. It's about lowering the spending and being more efficient and tough on those non-frontline, non-essential areas, back of room stuff that people never see, the public never sees, so that we can in fact increase the budget amounts for better transit service out of suburban communities, better on-demand busing, better snow clearing. You know, when I door knock so many suburban communities and I hear from so many of them that none of them have seen a snow plow in 24, 25, this is not a good thing. You know, policing, and then the question of like, what is a core city service? There's a bit of fuzziness, as we know, when it comes to our front lines dealing with the carnage of an unchecked mental health and addictions crisis. And we've talked about that at length today. But we realize that we have to be very careful about what is our role there. If we start talking about taking the whole thing on, we're going to have to reduce bus service. We're going to have to reduce snow clearing because we're making irresponsible decisions doing things that we can't afford.
That's your 90 seconds. Over to you, Mr. Knack.
So again, I think this comes back to, we have really important core services, and I'm hearing it as well, right? We hear this at the door that people want to see that investment in safety. They want to see that investment in snow clearing and grass cutting and all of these important services that do impact their quality of life. They want to see investments in recreation centers and libraries. And, you know, I hear a siren right now. We are short 4 fire halls in the city. We need to make sure we're investing in that as we're growing. And so what I'm worried about here is, again, back to this original point we talked about, I feel we're hearing two visions about one of how we keep costs down, and then at the same time, we need to provide those services that everyone needs. So how do we further increase the snow removal budget? It was increased over this 4-year budget. How do we further increase that? And we have to go back to this point around reprioritizing the budget, actually creating it with Edmontonians, and doing it with someone who has a track record of actually building responsible budgets. So for me, it's about investing in those core services. That's what I've wanted to put in. That's what I've been putting funding into in the last number of years. And at the same time, continuing to find savings, continuing to prove that you can do this.
Okay, Mr. Cartmell.
Yeah, so core services, let's pick off a few. First, police servicing, and we talk about safety. We talk about safety underpinning everything that we're going to do in this city. If we're going to revitalize downtown, if we're going to get people back on transit, safety is core to that. And both these gentlemen voted to reduce the police budget at the end of the last term. When we're going to talk about core services in terms of transit, let's talk about the road network. That is a core service that 75% or more of commuters are looking at every day. And yet, our administration refuses somehow to make sure that we have a coordinated set of construction projects that allows people to move around in this city. That's something I can tell you as an engineer can be solved. There is always more than one solution here. There's always more than one set of parameters or actions that you can take. There's always more than one solution to the problem. And if you coordinate those solutions, you can actually maintain a traffic network that includes bus traffic that allows people to move around if you just actually try. But closing all the roads and half the bridges that access downtown does not make any sense. So when we talk about core services, we have to talk about what people are looking for in their everyday lives. Where does their journey start? Where does their journey end? It should start with that. Safety is a core service. Transit is a core service. Keeping taxes down is a core service. And again, we talk about, again, as one example, snow clearing. The motion was to increase snow clearing budget by $40 million. Andrew and his other council colleagues reduced that to 10 over 4 years.
That's your 90 seconds. You have 30 seconds to challenge it.
Yeah, so I think there's three questions I would ask each of these gentlemen. One is, there was an opportunity to do priority-based budgeting this term. Why wasn't it done in earnest? I think, and it wasn't. You know, we watched, it wasn't. Why is our financial...
You'll have 30 seconds. Okay.
Why is our financial stabilization reserve that we use to sort of backstop snow and other, why is that half of what the policy is targeted at 70, just over 70 million when it should be 140? And how did you let regional transit get killed, which was an opportunity to provide a better transit service through the whole region and the whole city?
That's your 30 seconds, Mr. Cartmell.
I supported regional transit. Coming into the last election, I campaigned on what I called Committee of Supply, which is another way of saying go through the budget line by line and figure it out. My motion, my intent was to do that at the council table. The most of council, I didn't agree with this, agreed to put all of the budget amendments into the mayor's office and have them vetted by bureaucrats in the mayor's office, and it came back to an administration-led process, and it died on the order paper. Getting back to doing it at the council table is what I campaigned on and what I want to do.
Okay, that's 30 seconds. Mr. Knack, you have 30.
So we know that there's, again, this affordability crisis, the reserve that was being talked about here. This is something that was done because over the last number of years, including our last council, when we went through the pandemic, we made a lot of cuts to our budget. We needed to do that because people were facing real struggles. People were losing jobs. So actually all of us supported those cuts. But at some point, you have to pay for that, right? You can kick the can down the road for only so long before sooner or later you have to pay for it. And so we all made very deliberate choice, all of us, everyone at this table, to say we're not going to invest as much during the pandemic. And that's where we're at.
That's your 30 seconds. Thanks very much. We return to our live chat powered by Park Power for our next question submitted by a real talker. In this case, it's Super Chat Ken, who says none of these candidates will be able to control when the provincial government decides to download costs to them. We simply don't have a government-to-government system involving respect and cooperation. How will you manage the city's relationship with the province? Mr. Knack, you'll lead us off.
I'll start by doing what I've been doing for the last 12 years. So over 12 years, I've been working together with the PCs, the NDP, the UCP under Premier Kennedy, the UCP under Premier Smith. And I've been able to secure investments for major infrastructure programs in the West End, something like the Valley Line West LRT, which is the single largest infrastructure investment in our city. We did that by working together with people from across ideological backgrounds. And part of why, as a city councillor, I go door knocking all of the time, not just during elections. Part of why I host town halls all of the time, not just during campaigns, is to engage and understand the different perspectives that exist. So absolutely, I'll continue to work with this provincial government, find where we have common ground on the things that matter. There are areas where we have great common ground, economic development. We've seen that. We know how to do that together. But that is why I come back to this point of we have to be willing to stand up when things aren't being addressed. And that's not setting a bad relationship. That's standing up for the Edmontonians that we're supposed to be serving. So sit down at the table, have great conversations, secure those investments, work on common issues, and then step up when we need to. And we've seen that with groups like Alberta Municipalities. I've sat on the board of Alberta Municipalities for the last 6 years. This is a group that can also help us advocate for these things that matter, the increased infrastructure funding that we need. We need to invest in this, and we can work together with organizations like that to help find common ground with the provincial government, as I've been doing for the last 12 years.
Okay, that's your 90 seconds. Mr. Cartmell, over to you.
Thank you. Well, I've actually built those relationships, and I've been able to deliver a number of things for the ward I represent currently, investment by the province. And again, I'll point to the Twilliger Drive project, which is actually being funded more by the province than by the city. And that was collaboration that I built almost single-handedly, often at times without the support of the council that I was on, to go and build those relationships. What I'm finding is that when I go and try to have those conversations now, the first 10 minutes of the conversation is answering questions about other people's social media posts or their media interview yesterday about how they were harshly critical of the province and the premier. This constant, almost bullhorn of criticism from current members of city council towards the province is a distraction. It distracts us from actually doing the actual work when you actually get in the room. I will note that I was invited to a table that to build that provincial relationship, and I was criticized for going to that table. And in working at that table, bringing the message that the city had in terms of mental health and addictions and the things that the city need in real tangible ways. And when that same minister came out a week or so ago and talked about the heavy hand that the province will bring on city budgets, I was the first to the mic to say that is absolutely not on, that when if we're going to be critical of some councillors in their performative actions in the media, then the same stands for the provincial government. They should not be taking on these performative actions either.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cartmell. 90 seconds to you, Mr. Walters.
So, we need to be able to do two things at once as strong leaders. Leaders stand up for their city when it matters, stand up for families when it matters, and we also can negotiate in earnest. I released a letter this week to the Premier about a fair deal for Edmonton and Edmonton Accord. Talks about our infrastructure needs, how that's hurting our economy, driving up taxes. Talked about the need to get our fine revenue back so that we can pay for the important traffic safety initiatives at the neighborhood level. And these issues that we've talked around about mental health, housing, addictions, these are all important things that we need to work together with them on. My approach is I don't overprivilege the sort of political power of this sort of mano-to-mano kind of premier to mayor diplomacy that we've seen attempted in the last number of years. It's not working. I'm a community organizer by background. I see the community for what it is and the power and opportunity in our whole community. The business community is an opportunity through which to organize and connect to the provincial government. Our faith community gives us the opportunity to organize and connect to the provincial government. Our nonprofit communities have good relationships with these governments. We need to leverage those relationships, take an all hands on deck approach. This is not politics is not a hero's business where one of us is going to save the day. We have to use our whole community to get what we need to help our people here. That's the approach I'll take, and I'm very committed to that broad-based approach.
Okay, Mr. Cartmell, you have 30 seconds to challenge.
Thank you. So in the 30 years that I've been managing construction projects, one of the interesting things about that is that you don't get to pick the team that arrives at the construction trailer. Every trade sends their own person, and you might not have a social relationship with that person. You might not like that person's politics. You might not like how they present themselves. But the key is that those are the people you have to work with. And I have led these teams by keeping the eye on the goal. What is the thing that we're actually trying to do collectively? What is the thing that we are all actually trying to achieve? And by leading teams in that way and not worrying about who your team members are, you can actually get things done.
Okay, that's your 30 seconds. Would anyone like to rebut?
Well, you had the opportunity to lead a team in the last 4 years as a senior leader, as a veteran counselor, and you didn't really lead, Tim. You respectfully, there was a lot of, you're upset at your colleagues, pointing fingers. I think it was an inexperienced council, a new council, lots of talent. You had the opportunity to show them the way on some things, and I'm just not sure what happened. I just feel like there could have been a much better job at everybody coming together in the last 4 years to focus on things, because we look where we are, less safe, less affordable, more homeless people than we ever had.
Okay.
The results aren't strong.
That's your 30 seconds, Mr. Knack.
So I'll come back to, we've seen that engagement. The Chamber of Commerce, our nonprofit community, so many different communities came together over the last 4 years and were advocating to the provincial government for more housing, for more supports for the people that are dying on our streets. And even through that collaborative exercise of bringing together all of those voices, we saw the provincial government early this year provide an answer that they're not going to take up more responsibility. So that's why we can't keep waiting. That's why we have to be willing to lead in this.
Okay, thank you. 30 seconds to you, Mr. Walters.
So why didn't you fund the overdose response teams? Why didn't you fund the encampment response teams? These were these things that was in your power and reasonably within your budget to help at a crisis. And I know you're going to say more housing, but if someone dies of an overdose, the housing you're going to build 2 years from now isn't going to help them. You had the opportunity to do some of the things you say you're going to not wait for the province to do in the next 4 years. And I think it's important that we have a leader who's willing to do the right things at the right time and not play politics.
Okay, that's your 30 seconds. We will wrap this portion of the Real Talk Edmonton mayoral debate to transition to one-on-one crossfire. In just a moment, each candidate will have a chance to put their toughest questions directly to one another. I also see a question from Dwayne in our live chat powered by Park Power. He says, Real Talk has a healthy Calgary audience. Will there be a Calgary mayoral debate? And Dwayne, I'm happy to let you know that 1 week from today, on Friday, the 10th of October, we will feature the top 5 polling candidates down in Calgary for the Real Talk Calgary mayoral debate live at 8:30 Mountain Time on Friday, October 10th. More with Mr. Cartmell, Mr. Walters, and Mr. Knack in just a moment. But first, I want to make sure that the Royal Alexandra Hospital Foundation is on your radar. This is unbelievable. Celebrating 125 years of serving not just the Metro Edmonton region, but the province of Alberta and beyond. The Royal Alexandra Hospital is so much more than a building. It's a place where moments of care echo through generations, from the first breath of a newborn to the comfort given in life's hardest moments. Every story within these walls sends out ripples, touching families, shaping communities, and inspiring the care of tomorrow. These are the echoes of the Alex. And with your gift today, those echoes will continue, carrying forward hope, healing, and compassion for generations yet to come. Show your support today at givetoroyalalex.org. Hey, if you're thinking of pursuing that post-secondary journey, the one that you've been thinking about for years, but, well, you've never really been able to find the time, you didn't miss the deadline just because Labor Day weekend has passed. At Athabasca University, Canada's open university, their world-class accredited online degrees and courses are designed so you can complete your education wherever and whenever it works for you. Your only commute is to your device. You're plotting out the pace of your studies, and that's just one of the AU advantages. You can learn more about how AU works by visiting the website today. That's athabascau.ca. You know, when Prime Minister Mark Carney was sitting in this studio on the 10th of September, he was talking about Pathways Alliance. How much do you know about Pathways Alliance? It's 6 of Canada's largest oil sands companies working together to help grow Canada's economy. Of course, the entire country benefits from a strong energy sector. The oil and gas sector alone supports more than 446,000 jobs across Canada, while generating billions in tax and royalty revenue. Pathways Alliance is a collaborative effort to provide energy the world needs while advancing environmental innovation and projects. You can learn more about Pathways Alliance by visiting their website. That's pathwaysalliance.ca. Civic Service Union 52 represents over 7,000 frontline and professional workers across Edmonton and parts of Alberta, including members from the City of Edmonton, EPCOR, Capital Power, Edmonton's Public Library, the TELUS World of Science, and Valley View Municipal Library. They're building in Edmonton for everyone, working in core city services like 911 and 311 operators, city planners, IT specialists, recreation leaders, technical staff, with the Edmonton Police Service. They keep the city running behind the scenes and on the front lines. This election, CSU 52 is prioritizing a safe, smart, welcoming, and fair city. You can learn more about how they're doing that by visiting edmontonforeveryone.ca. And we talk a lot about our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power. Park Power is our friendly local utilities provider with electricity, natural gas, and internet services. You know, if you bundle all 3 of those, you could save $150 your very first month with a promo code exclusive to Real Talkers. Check out parkpower.ca/realtalk for more details. Park Power shares a portion of their profits with nonprofits in Alberta, which is just one of the reasons why we're so proud to partner with Park Power at parkpower.ca. I've been looking forward to this portion of the Real Talk Edmonton mayoral debate for quite some time. We're giving these candidates, Tim Cartmell, Andrew Knack, and Michael Walters, a chance to put their toughest questions directly to one another. Each of them, which have been drawn at random, will have 1 minute to frame a question. Their opponent will have 90 seconds to respond, And then the individual who asked the question will have 30 seconds to rebut. We'll begin with Mr. Cartmell asking a question to Mr. Knack.
Thank you. So, Andrew, you, Michael, and I have served on City Council together, but there's certainly a number of things that we've disagreed on. You and your council friends supported significant year-over-year tax increases. You backed $100 million for bike lanes in the middle of an affordability crisis. You've defended construction approaches that drag on and take over people's lives, and participated in a war with our police service and our police commission, which has not helped the safety situation in our city. And right here on this show, you said that this is the best council you've ever worked with. Yet 70% of Edmontonians say the city is on the wrong track. So my question to you is, if this is really the best council you've ever worked with, why are Edmontonians so upset?
Over to you, Mr. Knack.
Thanks for the question. So I think about the last 4-year budgets. When we actually voted on that on the operating side, I voted against that 4-year budget. It's the first time I ever did it in my 12 years on council. And the reason was I felt we weren't investing in enough in the core services, and that I felt on the operating side that we didn't do enough to find efficiencies. So that's actually why I'd voted against that, because I felt at the time we could have done better. And we're going to do better as we go forward in the next 4 years. At the same time, I did support our capital budget because we are a rapidly growing city. And this is what I worry about, is that the suggestion that we're going to pause the projects, you've talked about pausing all new projects going forward, means that those 4 fire halls that we need, the libraries that we need, the rec centers that we need, aren't going to be invested in the suburban communities. And in our older communities, we're not going to see that ongoing renewal investment that's so desperately needed. So for me, it's about making sure that we're working together with the next council, whoever that is, and actually investing in those core services, putting the money in the right places. And then even with something like construction, I was the one that brought forward a motion to try something different. Because at the end of the day, it's easy to talk about the things that are challenges for people, because there are real challenges for people. It's something else entirely to say, here's what I've done as a councillor to take action on these things. We're trying a different method for construction. I put forward a motion to do a new budget process. These are the things that I've already been championing, and that we need to I'll champion as mayor going forward.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Cartmell, you have 30.
Yeah, when I hear, poll after poll say that 70% of Edmontonians think that the city is on the wrong track, and I think of the things that I've voted against and tried to influence at the council table, I'll come back to one thing. We are simply not listening to the people that we represent. They are not being heard. They are getting frustrated. They want to have a say in what happens in their community. They want to say on how their dollars are spent. They want to see their dollars at work for them when they look out the door, and they're not seeing any of that, and that's why they're upset.
Okay, that's your 30 seconds. Up next, Mr. Knack, you'll pose a question to Mr. Walters. Your time begins now.
Thank you very much. So during a number of forums during this campaign, you have committed to reducing next year's tax increase with the rate of inflation. That would mean an approximately $102.7 million reduction in the 2026 budget. So as you know, our budget documents are public, and what I'd like to see is, what are the specific details you can provide us on how you will be reducing the $102.7 million in the operating budget?
So I have brought that up. I said on this show, when I first announced my campaign, that a nearly 7% tax increase this year would, on top of the 28% over the last 4 years, would do real damage to our economy and to our financial situation over the long term. What's interesting is, as you've retorted to my assertion of an around inflation increase this year, you've said, how are you going to find 71 million? Then you asked me later, how am I going to find 91 million? And now you're asking me how I'm going to find 102 million. So this is the interesting thing about how the numbers continue to change. So let's just be straight. This, for me, isn't about austerity. It isn't about not funding public services properly. I think there's a lack of trust in what is in the budget and what's been put into the budget by your council in the last 4 years, which has not been concerned about competitiveness and which has not been concerned about sustainable long-term public services. So for me, this is about looking at a new council with a new mayor and a city manager. We can find 3 to 5% savings in all of our non-frontline services. We look at all the stuff back of house. We have enterprise commons way over budget. We have massive IT projects. Capital costs are driving 13% of our total budget is debt servicing. You cannot tell me for 1 second that we cannot find 3 to 5% savings in a $3.5 billion budget after 4 years of excessive spending.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Walters. You have 30.
So again, I'll come back to, at the end of the day, we need to hear specifics. Because without those specifics, without the actual pieces, what we see is that we're going to lose more public services. We're going to have to cut back on the bus routes. We're going to have to actually close down rec centers earlier and libraries earlier. That is something that large amount of money, and the reason it changed is because originally you had a change from 6.4 to 3.4, and then you said inflation. And so I'm just going based off your updated numbers now.
I never
and
said,
so,
I never
yeah,
said
you did.
those numbers.
In the different forms you did.
No,
so,
no,
yep,
not-
and we
I
can
did.
pull up the numbers. So, sorry, I didn't get a
Take
chance
5
to.
more.
Thank you. So I just think you need to be very upfront, because otherwise we're going to have to privatize services, which you've mused about before, or you're going to have to cut the public services people rely on. That's how you're going to cut $102 million out of the budget.
Okay,
right now.
that's time. Up next.
I get 30 seconds.
Not in this format, unfortunately,
okay.
but we
All
are
right.
giving the
Well,
mic right back to you.
sure.
However you use your next 60 seconds is up to you. Michael Walters, a question for Tim Cartmell.
Yeah, well, I will say that all of Andrew's numbers, we can talk about this more, are inaccurate, and his tax increases are excessive, and we have to be mindful. I would say to Tim, I have the question. Councillor Cartmell, you were handpicked by the current provincial government to sit on the public safety provincial task force. That gave you a direct line to the government. But during your time there, Edmonton has seen now, we have 5,000 unhoused people, a surge in overdose deaths, and a downtown that is unsafe for vulnerable people, for students, for business owners, and for workers. So if you couldn't translate that privileged access into real results for our city then, noting those results that I just named, which are not good, how can we believe that you're going to build bridges with the province as mayor when you failed to do it as a chosen councillor?
Okay, Mr. Cartmell, you have 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to circle back. I'll give you a real number, Andrew. You can find $50 million in getting out of development of Blatchford, something that both of you gentlemen supported, just going back to the previous conversation. It's interesting. I have been criticized and characterized for being too close to the UCP, that I'm effectively the UCP mayor, that I've landed here because the UCP wants me here. And it comes out of this conversation around this task force and willing to be part of that task force. I've come to this work very honestly. In my first campaign, I talked about bringing City Hall to the community because the community can't get to City Hall. I talked about getting into places in the evenings and the weekends where we could have those conversations because people can't have the conversations in their ordinary everyday. I viewed my responsibility to work with, at every possible opportunity, the decision makers at other levels of government. And so I took the opportunity to be part of that task force. I brought the information forward that was provided by our city council. I brought the issues to that table to the best of my ability. And quite frankly, there was distractions there because the rest of city council was doing things like picking fights with the police service, picking fights with the government, picking fights with the premier. There was too much noise and distraction rather than any kind of supporting effort by the rest of council to say, all right, we have an opportunity at the table through Councillor Cartmell, through Councillor Hamilton. How are we going to leverage it?
Okay, that's your 90 seconds. You have 30.
And I'm certainly not suggesting that you're anything but honest. I know you certainly to be a very honest person. I'm talking about efficacy and being effective. So you had the opportunity, the privilege, the access. I think the question is how do we behave differently in relation to our council colleagues? Now, the beautiful thing about municipal politics is we don't get to pick who we get to serve with. The ward voters do that. Our job is to build a relationship with those people based on their skills, talents, work together. And that's what I would have liked to have seen from veteran councillors in the last 4 years.
Thank you, gentlemen. We will now close the Real Talk Edmonton mayoral debate with what we're calling the Big Promise. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to tell you what's the single most important promise you're making if elected mayor. Michael Walters, you're up first.
Yeah, so thank you. I appreciate this opportunity. I appreciate always the opportunity to spend time with Tim and Andrew, both fine people who I've enjoyed working with over the years. I love this city. I couldn't wait to move here as a young person, raise my family here, and dedicate much of my life to serving this community. Our city has incredible potential, but we're stuck. We're stuck in process, stuck in debate, stuck watching other cities pull ahead. The election comes down to a simple question. Do we want more of the same, more of the last 4 years, or are we ready to turn the page and choose a new direction? So I'm running for mayor because I'm ready to lead the change Edmonton needs. And as your mayor, and this gets to the big promise, Ryan. As your mayor, I will take the politics out of public safety and lead with compassion, making our streets and our transit system safe again. I will take the politics out of the need to tackle homelessness and addiction, using every tool, no matter who came up with it, as long as it's evidence-based and it works, to help stop the widespread suffering in our city. We need to drive responsible growth, building housing urgently to increase affordability without alienating or picking fights in neighborhoods. And I will work tirelessly to grow our economy and rebuild our business tax base, because when high taxes drive investment to our neighbors, services get to be more expensive for everyone. So my big promise is that we can have a unifying, collaborative, all for one, one for all 4 years in our city. We don't have political parties on one hand, or third-party advertisers and special interest groups on another hand, driving our agenda. What we can have is togetherness with the people of Edmonton, a mayor and a council, rising up together to achieve our boldest and best future. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Michael Walters. Mr. Knack.
Thank you. So on October 20th, Edmontonians will vote in one of the most important civic elections we have ever had. Many people are undecided. The stakes are high, and it's a serious decision. I want those Edmontonians to ask themselves, what city services will Tim or Michael sacrifice or privatize to achieve their budget cuts? Is it snow clearing? Fixing crumbling roads? The next fire hall? Do we make deep cuts today that leave a lasting legacy of problems for our kids tomorrow? Or do we make smart budget changes necessary to build, protect, and improve the things that matter? Our communities, our parks, our libraries, and so much more. These services are at risk in this election. Are we going to point fingers and shy away from our challenges, whether it's growth pressures, homelessness, housing, or safety? Or are we going to step up and start solving them together? Leadership is on the ballot in this election. Are we going to let the provincial government call the shots at City Hall? Because when you vote for local political parties, which were created by the UCP, you do not get better local government. All you get is more politics. With me, you get independent leadership focused on you. So place your trust in me, and I will listen and lead with integrity, always. Count on me, and I will protect the services that make Edmonton strong. Vote for me, and I will work with you to build a brighter future for our city, the one that we all deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knack. Mr. Cartmell, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I have been criticized as being the UCP choice. Andrew just reiterated that now. But I can tell you that the UCP wants nothing more than have Andrew Knack as mayor. That allows them to continue bullying Edmonton, to continue ignoring Edmonton. And I can tell you, as the next mayor, that won't happen. They will not be able to do either. You know, I am an engineer. I've worked for 30 years leading projects. And like I said earlier, you don't get to pick everybody that arrives at the table. What you do expect is that those that arrive at the table, they know what the mission is. They know what it is we're trying to deliver. They know where we're supposed to be heading. And as a leader with engaged and dedicated table of city councillors, I will be able to lead us in the directions we really need to go. There has not been a budget. There has not been a bylaw that has been perfect immediately right out of the gate. Real leadership means listening to people, reading and reacting, listening and adapting. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm an engineer, I'm a business owner, I'm not a career politician. For me, leadership has always meant cutting through the excuses, demanding accountability, and making sure projects are done right. And as a councillor, I've delivered real results for my ward. Twilliger Drive, the Ambleside Service Building, and the Twilliger Rec Centre. I'm showing I can get things done, get them built right, and hold City Hall accountable. And here's the difference. My opponents either stood behind the same council decisions that led us here, or they want to pretend they weren't in the room. Edmontonians deserve more than recycled ideas and revisionist history. I know we can build it better because I have done it my whole life. I know a great city doesn't have to cost more, it just needs to be managed better. With the right plan, with the right team, and the most experience, Edmontonians will see results in the first 100 days. Safer streets, smarter spending, and services that actually work. On October 20th, vote for Tim Cartmell and a better Edmonton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cartmell. And our thanks to Tim Cartmell, to Andrew Knack, and to Michael Walters for their time, for their candor, and for their ideas. We also want to remind you, Real Talkers, that there are other candidates for mayor in the city of Edmonton, and you can direct your attention to our Real Talk YouTube archive or our podcast archive for a conversation with Raheem Jaffer on August 29th and a conversation with Omar Mohammed on September 17th. And a reminder, we will welcome the top 5 polling candidates for mayor of the city of Calgary a week from today on Friday, October 10th. Now, gentlemen, I invite you all to please transport yourselves to our green room because things are about to get a whole lot louder and a whole lot more profane with the Flamethrower, presented by our friends at the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. Again, our thanks to these 3 candidates, Michael Walters, Andrew Knack, and Tim Cartmell. You know, these conversations wouldn't happen on Real Talk without incredible partners like our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. And I want to make sure that you're joining us at the 2025 State of the Province Address with Premier Danielle Smith. I'm proud to be hosting that event. Alberta's future is on the line, and you're invited to hear it firsthand. On October 16th at Ford Hall at Rogers Place, the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce once again will host Premier Danielle Smith for the 2025 State of the Province Address. Join me, the team at the Chamber, and over 1,000 business and community leaders as the Premier outlines her vision for Alberta's economic future. From energy transformation and agriculture to fiscal responsibility and global competitiveness, you can get your tickets today by visiting edmontonchamber.com. I had a chance to pop into The Helm just the other day, a couple of blocks from our Real Talk studio in beautiful downtown Edmonton. You know, The Helm offers a contemporary 3-story retail experience in Edmonton's downtown core. They've got all of the fall's best fashion ready for you to check out right now, including Ralph Lauren, Zegna, Brunello Cucinelli, Luigi Bianchi. That's my favorite. The Helm focuses on custom suits and luxury casual wear. If you absolutely must look your best, then I recommend you check in with Chad and the team at The Helm. You can also visit their website at thehelmclothing.com. If you're one of those Albertans that has noticed you're paying more for car insurance, you're paying more for home insurance, you're paying more to insure everything, and you're trying to figure out a way around it, I want to introduce you to the team at Peace Hills Insurance. This is an Edmonton-based insurance company serving all of Western Canada with home, auto, and business products. One of the things that sets them apart, they're owned by the Samson Cree Nation, and that makes them very unique. Their mission through Wakotowin, this is a Cree word representing the interconnectedness of all beings, is to be a respected insurer that provides creative and responsive solutions. They want to be a unique insurance company that truly cares, and they're delivering on that. You can get quotes today, connect with their team, give them a call and get a real-life human to answer the phone. You'll find them online at peacehillsinsurance.com. You know, every week here on the show, it's Thursdays, we share a story of how Alberta wins, presented by Play Alberta. This week, it was the town of Innisfail winning a national award for the work that Innisfail is doing on carbon capture. I want to talk to you about how Albertans are winning with Play Alberta. You know, every single day there's winners on Play Alberta, and right now, Play Alberta is offering odds boosts on every Oilers game all season long. That's right. Season opener, home opener coming up next Wednesday, and this is your chance to score big. For a limited time only, Real Talkers can get an exclusive $50 free bet when you deposit $50 using the code RYAN50. All one word, that's RYAN50 for an exclusive $50 free bet. Alberta wins with Play Alberta. You must be 18 or over to play, and if you gamble, please use your game sense. And our charity of choice this year, if you're new to the show, you may not have heard of UCAN Youth Services before. You can find them online at ucan.ca. This is an incredible nonprofit charitable organization that is helping young people work out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. They do that through a series of outreach programs, including their Relentless program, which assists the 12 to 17-year-olds, the 50 of them that are most interacting with the Edmonton Police Service. It's life-saving work in many cases, ending housing or food insecurity, dealing with gangs, stopping sexual exploitation, heavy and important stuff, and we can help the team at UCAN continue these programs. If you're doing your estate planning, if your family is looking at your philanthropy goals over the next year, consider UCAN Youth Services. You can find them online today at ucan.ca. Johnny Infamous, the intrepid producer of this show and the best damn photographer in the Metro Edmonton region, Carly Watson, helping us out behind the scenes on this episode of the show. That was fast moving. I liked it. Pretty respectful. A little bit, a little bit of disagreement as you'd expect in a debate, but for the most part, I think three visions, not dramatically different.
No, we talked about this before, but I thought it was good to see them challenging each other back and forth, and got to ask each other some questions. I'm just wondering how much crazier it's going to get when we have 5 people from Calgary doing this. Yeah. But Ryan, you skipped the obvious question: is what they think of the new Taylor Swift album?
I don't know why.
That's what Edmontonians want to know.
I should have led with it. What do you think of Oilers coach Chris Knobloch getting a 3-year contract extension? What do you think? I'll give Real Talkers a peek behind the scenes. On mornings like this, there's a lot of energy in the studio before the show begins for obvious reasons. And the candidates each have their teams in studio. And, of course, we're getting ready for a big episode. Wouldn't be a big episode without you, the audience, by the way, and we're so grateful for that. But Johnny, who's not only the show's technical director, but also, of course, the resident DJ, had the new Taylor Swift album absolutely cranked in here.
Who's not talking about it?
You know who I will say this. I don't think it's a secret that Councillor Knack, Mr. Knack himself, is a bit of a Swiftie. Well, he wears that badge with honor. He walked in with jump in his step when he heard what you were playing.
I get that music is subjective, and some people, like Taylor Swift, is not their thing. And she can be the biggest. She's top 5 most recognizable celebrity on the planet. She's definitely, top 3 most successful music artists of our time right now. And I get that some people, sometimes that means 80% of the world doesn't give a crap about this. But I couldn't turn on a podcast that was live this morning, a radio station, and I surf around in the mornings. I'm trying to absorb as much info before we get in here as I can. Everyone's talking about this album, and each candidate and their team, as they walked in today, was like, "What's your favorite
What do you
track?
think of the new?"
This one?" I'm like, "Dude, I just turned it on this word." They're like, "Father Figure's really good." I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Everybody's
they
talking.
Already know.
Wouldn't it be wild to see the streaming data, the streaming stats for what her album will do
so
in
she's
one day?
Releasing it with a documentary as well that's screening in 8,000 theaters across North America. So, I'm listening to the shows this morning. They're projecting that she's going to have #1 album, probably #1 song on Billboard, and possibly #1 movie in North America all at the same time coming up in the
unreal.
next 3
How about
months.
this from Justin, who, by the way, Justin, we have you locked and loaded in the Flamethrower. Justin says, sometimes I feel like one of the only people that doesn't really care about Taylor Swift. He says, says, I know that's not true. He says, but it's so hard to avoid her, even if you don't listen to her.
Art and music is subjective. You're allowed to like what you like.
Absolutely. Well, why don't we get into this? Because this is, friends,
the email inbox was stuffed.
Wild. I'm going to say literally 10 times the regular amount of emails that we'll get after a show over the past week or so, which is absolutely wild. I'm going to do my best to get through this episode without losing my voice, and with apologies to those of you whose messages hit the cutting room floor. Without further ado, we wrap every week, as you know, with an opportunity for you to send us your hottest takes to take over the floor. It is, of course, the Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. These are all real emails to talk@ryanjespersen.com or comments on our YouTube episodes. And we lead off with Andy. Andy says, I live in BC. I listen to Real Talk regularly. Thanks, Andy. Says, we do not want a bitumen pipeline to our Northwest coast. They've already tried, and we already said no. Please have somebody on the show who can explain the difference between a bitumen or crude oil spill versus a gas spill or other substances. It's way worse. It's way harder to clean up. And I think that people don't understand that it always spills eventually. Andy says there's also a list of natural gas projects, including pipelines that BC's already in the process of building. This is what Premier Eby was so pissed off about, that there's a big fight on BC's coast and a pipeline will make it impossible. The no tankers ban is actually a limit on the amount of very specific, damaging crude oil on individual tankers, and BC has said no pipelines. BC has not said no pipelines, just not this very specific one that we've already been clear we do not want. And he says what's striking is that for BC residents, your premier, Danielle Smith, never even asks how she could work with BC. She just tries to force it down our throats and threatens us, and then people from Alberta yell at us about it. She even said in her press conference a couple of days ago, it's too bad part of BC doesn't belong to Alberta, which Andy says is extremely insulting. What about this one from Robert, who says, I went to one of those free Alberta panels, and it was a ridiculous exercise in gaslighting, lies, and old man grievances. Nothing about healthcare, nothing about education, just weird, separatist horseshit. All the money in the world for Danielle to travel around and lie to everybody's faces, but funding public education? Nah, we broke. The plan is to destroy public education. That's the only transparent thing about the UCP. That from Robert. What about this one from Justin, who says, I am absolutely outraged at the conduct of the Premier's Office Executive Director Bruce McAllister during the Alberta Next panel in Calgary. His behavior was not only unprofessional, it was disgraceful. Cutting off Evan Lee, the student, before he could even ask his question was insulting enough, but then to suggest on a public stage that his parents should turn him over their knee was vile and indefensible. An apology cannot erase the harm. The damage is done. If Bruce McAllister remains in this position, it must be understood as Premier Danielle Smith herself endorsing his words and conduct. His actions reveal a clear pattern of disdain for Albertans at multiple panels. This is not an isolated lapse. The pattern constitutes a public declaration of contempt for the very people this government is supposed to serve. That from Justin. Thomas says, Jespo, great shows as always. Bruce McAllister's entitled, arrogant, dismissive conduct during the farcical Alberta Next roadshow perfectly illustrates the UCP's broader attitude toward Albertans, especially those who didn't vote for them. I also take issue with the credit given to Danielle Smith for supposedly being open to challenging questions. While she may occasionally tolerate viewpoints that differ from her ideology, she consistently comes across as dismissive, arrogant, and ultimately unwilling to hear those who challenge her. And as for that looming teachers' strike, it's clear this government never intended to reach a fair agreement with Alberta's teachers. Their attempt to placate parents with payouts and promote a plagiarized curriculum, what alliteration, Thomas, is yet another cheap political shot, both against teachers and against public education itself. Kimberly wonders, isn't the Alberta Next panel convened at taxpayers' expense to consult with the public? Why the fuck do they think they have the right to cut mics and remove people who are in no way being disrespectful or abusive? You know, we tend to think about the hardships people have with teachers' strikes, parents in particular, but it adversely affects high school kids who don't need babysitting, but do need their credits if they're looking to post-secondary schooling. That from Kimberly. Chris says, let alone how much money has gone to the Premier's friends, which we won't know since she won't have a public inquiry into her government's health supply procurement scandal, how much money has gone to asinine pricks like Bruce McAllister, who treats Albertans like shit? Wow, Chris. Says this government has screwed over Albertans on every possible front. Car insurance, health care, literally held together by duct tape and the sheer will of our frontline workers. Education, underfunded and overstuffed. I just want to scream and shove my hands into an electrical box like Ricky from Trailer Park Boys at this point, Chris. Unbelievable reference. When is Alberta gonna wake up? That from Chris, who also invites everybody to please enjoy their weekends. Aaron writes in and says, hot take for you, Jespo, for the Flamethrower. Trump asking Canada to become the 51st state should be taken as a compliment. We should be flattered. Also, isn't it voluntary to become a state? So it's not a threat, it's an offer. It would be prudent diplomacy to consider this a great honor and compliment from the president that we will politely decline for now. That from Aaron. Aaron for ambassador to the United States. How about this one from Brendan? Says, Jespo, I heard you with Kathleen Petty on the West of Center podcast this past weekend, and I'm begging you to please stop using that ridiculous line of public opinion in support of attacking trans kids. I mean, that's not exactly what I said, Brendan, but I'll take your point. He says, really? Parents want their kids to inform them about stuff. What a surprise. This is the parenting equivalent of fig jam. This use of the notwithstanding clause will be huge news for a while, so I'm challenging you, Ryan, says Brendan. Next time you decide to cite this garbage polling, I dare you to flip it around. Change the question to, do you want more trans kids to die? Then we'll see who the reasonable people are and who the transphobic assholes are. That from Brendan. And Tobias goes back, way back to our interview on September 9th with Caroline Briette. This was the conversation with Climate Action Canada right before we sat down with the PM. Tobias simply says, Caroline's a hypocrite. She hates oil and gas, yet she's wearing glasses made of plastic. Nothing gets past Tobias. You can fire up your flamethrower anytime by sending us an email to talk@ryanjespersen.com. The Flamethrower is proudly presented by our friends at the DQs in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and Baseline Road. When you pop in this weekend for a Flamethrower signature stack burger and a score blizzard, you let them know that Real Talk sent you. Have an amazing weekend. We'll see you back here Monday with Alberta Teachers Association President Jason Schilling, our regular co-pilot Supriya Dwivedi, and next Friday, the 10th of October, our Real Talk Calgary mayoral debate. We'll talk to you soon.